It's the big attraction of the afternoon, the Bridgestone Formula Opel Championship round over 22 laps. Now, these are the fastest racing cars in Ireland. They're single-seaters, they're all one make, all the same chassis, all the same 2-litre Vauxhall or Opel engine, depending on which part of the country you're marketing in. And on pole position, we're going to have the very, very talented Wayne Douglas from Ashbourne, there, number 66 on the front row of the grid. Alongside him, Michael Edgar. Very, very important afternoon for Michael, because he is joint leader in the championship at the moment. In fact, I say joint leader because it's a slightly confusing situation. Again, at this time of the year, we've got dropped scores allowed. And in fact, when you take in the necessary drop scored, he's joint leader with young Keneally, who's on the second row of the grid on the inside there, Derek Keneally, and alongside him, Ken Grandin. So two of the young bloods of Irish motorsport there on the second row. Again, as usual, my colleague John is sitting and observing this very interesting situation with 1 minute board gone there. John Kennedy.
Yes, 1 minute and 12 cars in the grid. This is really a transition year for Formula Opel. Ken Grandin is on the second row of the grid alongside Derek Keneally. Then you got Adrian Pollock on the row 3 alongside Noel Dunn. Then Vivian Daly in the 2FM Abracadabra car alongside David Collier. Gary O'Brien is on the 5th row of the grid. Outside is Mark O'Connor, who's running himself this year. David Megan, and then Noel Thompson down the very back of the grid, the slowest qualifiers.
So, very interesting situation indeed, and we're going to be looking as always and holding our breath as they bury their way down into the Coca-Cola corner. But before that, of course, we will have the green lap, as they call it, the warm-up lap, and that's a very important lap indeed in top-level motorsport, because there's a lot of little checklists you've got to do as a driver in that lap. For example, you're sitting on slick tires, and they have to be warmed up to race temperature. Away they go in the green lap. You've also got very hard brake landings, which also have to be warmed up. So you'll see cars maybe weaving around a little bit, and the idea of that is to warm up the tires. They will also be sort of purposely over-braking their cars on the first lap, again to warm up the brake pads. And of course, they'll also be trying to slightly unnerve the other drivers and to play the old psychology game.
Certainly. This is a really year of transition, according especially to Carol Clough, the series coordinator for Formula Opel. They've lost a couple of drivers from last year, including, unfortunately, Donald Lockery, who won the championship, had an horrific accident in the Nations Cup. Thankfully, he's all right, but not really fit to race this year. And, of course, we lost the Duke brothers. Peter went to race in Britain, and Michael went back to his first love, which was show jumping. Unfortunately, we've lost him. So, 12 cars out this time. We would have had 13, of course, except for the fact that Jason Pollock isn't here. Jason Pollock was second in the championship right up to Phoenix Park, but then was thrown out of the championship unceremoniously for being found illegal with engine tampering. This has happened for the last couple of years, an unfortunate thing that's been happening in Formula Opel. So Jason is not here, but he's got a 12-month ban which will end in August of next year. But he's appealing that severity of the ban, and as you say, because of that, the championship points remain provisional.
And there you can see them weaving from left to right to warm up those tires to make sure that when they go off the line, hit the first corner, those tires are going to be up to temperature and give them full grip. Even with these maneuvers, the tires won't be quite as efficient as they will about half a lap or 3/4 of a lap into the race. 22-lap race, long distances really in terms of Irish club racing. And sadly, already we've got somebody off out there. Looks like the DHL, does it?
I'm not sure. Number 6 is out of the race, unfortunately, and unfortunately we won't see him again this race, that which, as I said, 12 cars starting, and even less now, Plum.
Well, that's very sad. Mark O'Connor, a local man from Naas in the ACEC electric car, and very much a front runner and very much a charger. That's a pity.
It is a real pity, because on the front row of the grid is Wayne Douglas, and that is Mark O'Connor's car, because Mark O'Connor is not driving for Cliff Dempsey Racing anymore. Mark O'Connor has had a poor season in the UK, and he's now in that car, and there's poor old Mark down the back of the field pushing his car around. So only 11 starts.
Wayne Douglas, and if you want to talk about talented Irish motorsport, this is the man. Wayne Douglas, B champion in England last year in this category, and was the first man ever to win a B race and outright. So there he is, 66, 5 seconds to go. On the outside of him, the man who's very much in the contention championship, and in fact it is Edgar who makes the better start. But look at young Keneally down the outside on the grass. He's got to be careful, he's got to stay in this race. He needs the points.
Yes, that was a very dramatic start from the second row of the grid there from Derek Keneally. He tried to go around the outside of Mike Edgar. Mike Edgar wasn't having any of that whatsoever. They banged wheels out of the grass. Went the young guy, and Edgar said, no, you're not getting second. I'm keeping second. So Douglas leads as they head out of the country into Bridgestone Corner.
It's all happening just behind there. Derek Keneally in 4th place at the moment. There he comes just over the hill now in the orange and red car, and just behind him young Adrian Pollock. He was very, very sideways in the 2nd corner and was lucky to hold the car, but up the front, Wayne Douglas
leading. He had, as I said, a poor championship this time around in the UK. He tried his hand over there. It didn't quite work out. So I was just talking to him before the race. He actually has a problem with his arm. He was down below in the first aid area. He said he banged the car, banged his arm when he was racing in the park, and that's been bothering him ever since. And he says he hopes to race in the Winter Series in the UK in Formula Vauxhall, but he's leading here and has won since his return 2 of the 3 rounds he's competed.
And we're just looking at the background there. Noel Dunn was absolutely side by side. I think he's slipped past Adrian Pollock, in fact. But here's the battle for the lead, and it's Wayne Douglas still throwing this car sideways, a style that really he introduced here at Mondello a number of years ago when he was champion. In 2nd place, Michael Edgar. Very, very important race for him. He's joint leader in reality in the championship. 3rd place, look at that, Grandon from Cork. Ken Grandon. What a superb situation for this young man. He's only in his first season of Formula Opel racing, and there he is in the DHL car in 3rd place, and then the other championship contender, and that's Keneally.
Yes, this is one of the best championship positions so far for one of the PJ Fallon Henny's racing cars. Up to 3rd place is a superb start for Ken Grandon, but there's 22 laps of hard racing to come, with 20 now laps to go, and a real battle up front between these 2 old adversaries. The 1993 champion, of course, is Wayne Douglas, and the 1994 champion is Mike Edgar. Mike Edgar didn't compete the championship last year, but did run in it, but again found illegal engine tampering, found guilty of same, lost out in his championship points and positions last year, but he's back this year battling for the championship, and he'll be well pleased, of course, with the fact that Derek Keneally didn't get a very good start.
Now, there's another hidden factor in all this, and that is that the championship contenders are only allowed a certain amount of tyres all year. And at this stage of the season, when we're getting with only the 2nd last round, in fact, this is, some people may have sort of overused their quota, and we may have cars out there, some of them on fresher rubber, which will develop as the race goes on. So, has Michael Edgar got a nice set of tyres up his sleeve? We'll have to wait and see. He's certainly abusing them at the moment. Ken Grandon and Keneally there challenging, and also young Adrian Pollock there. They were all together. Pollock had to drop back, and Keneally is desperate to get up past Grandon and get more points.
I think that, in fact, Pollock, or Grandon I should say, is holding up that field, at the train behind with Keneally, and it is really letting the front 2 get away, I'm afraid.
And he doesn't need this. He needs to be right up there with Michael Edgar, and he's not able to do it. It's a very frustrating situation. At the back there, we saw Gary O'Brien, who's got a wing astray at the very back of that train. Gary O'Brien in the fast track car, and that whole wing is off at a very alarming angle. Just coming up the hill at the moment. Look at this, Gary O'Brien very much a front runner. We will see it probably from a back view. Look, there it is. It's at a very odd angle.
Yes, it's not been a very good season, I'm afraid, for Gary O'Brien. Gary O'Brien crashed out of it, the park, unceremoniously before the race started. Did himself around £2,000 worth of damage, and in this kind of form of racing, that is a lot of money, especially if you're running on a very, very tight shoestring budget. And again, he's got whacked again today, and that, of course, doesn't help with the aerodynamics, and he'll drop down the field. In fact, he's down in 9th place overall.
Now, one of the problems in Formula Opel, a bit like Formula 1 in fact, is that it's very difficult to overtake here at Mondello. There really are only 2 opportunities. One is coming up right now as they come up the hill towards Dunlop Hairpin, but you would have to be a lot closer than Michael Edgar is at the moment and poke the nose down the inside there. And the second real opportunity is down at the end of this straight, and that's where Edgar would have to build up the slipstream, dive out into the clean air, get the downforce on the car and sneak down the inside. There's Grandon in 3rd place, Keneally 4th, then Adrian Pollock 5th, and then Noel Dunn, who had a great race at Kirkuson last weekend.
Yes, and he's driving, of course, the old Sam Thompson car. Sam Thompson had a brilliant series here last year, in the latter part of last season, then decided to retire, but now he's building his own cars, and he's got Noel Dunn racing this time. He said had a great race last week in Kirkuson.
The second Castrol car That's the first one, the man that's leading, of course, Wayne Douglas, with the second Castrol car driven by Adrian Pollock. No relation, incidentally, to Jason Pollock. So, first and second we're watching. This is third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh and eighth. There's Vivian Daly, of course, number 12, very experienced campaigner.
Douglas is lapping in the 54.51. Donald Lochry's lap record time is 53.65, set here last year, not in this particular Leinster Trophy meeting, but set in June of last year. Unfortunately, Donald Lochry not racing this year.
Michael Edgar a little bit closer this time, the 17 laps to go still, 16 laps now, and so Michael Edgar getting a little bit closer that time, but I don't still think quite close enough, so he really needs Wayne Douglas to make a mistake, and that's going to be, let's be honest, unlikely.
They were lapping in the 63.69 this morning. That's in fact Wayne Douglas's qualifying time, which is only 4/100ths of a second offside that lap record time. But of course, you can only get a lap record in a race, and his best time today, 54.44, and Edgar slightly faster, 54.42, and a gap of less than half a second. In fact, you can just see it. That's the battle for the lead, and a cracking battle it is too.
And he's trying all kinds of different... Ooh, Michael, a bit late on the brakes that time, locking up. He's trying all kinds of different lines to sort of rather unsight the guy ahead of him. But Wayne Douglas, very experienced, only allows himself the odd glance in the mirror. And here's Ken Grandin. I'm most impressed by this young man. He comes from a rallying family background. His father was a very experienced rallyman, lives down in Cork. And there's the gap. You can see there's really quite a long gap now between second and third. And Ken Grandin and still Derek Keneally in fourth place.
15 laps to go. We're down to 10 cars. Mark O'Connor, you saw at the start, failing to get his car around. He was pushing it to the start-finish line. And we've also lost David Megan early part of the race. We didn't see where he went off. So we're down to 10 now with Douglas, Edgar, Grandin, Keneally, Adrian Pollock, Noel Dunn, Vivian Daly in the 2FM car, Collier, O'Brien and Noel Thompson in 10th place. 16,
David Collier. A little bit disappointed to see him back there. He can be a real charger at times. He's down in 8th place.
Seems to be a little bit of a gap developing there between Wayne Douglas and also Mike Edgar. There's the second group, which is the real battle. Grandin, I think, is holding everybody up. Keneally has been going round the outside, down the inside, the whole lot. But that's motor racing. If you're ahead, you're allowed to stay where you want. You've got to get around behind. And there's Megan's car in the background. As I said, he expired very early on in the race. 10 cars left, and this is the real battle. Second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Third in this group is Adrian Pollock, son of Rob Pollock, a man from Omagh, who was very well known in hill climbs and sprints about 20 years ago or so, and still attends his motor car. So there they are, third, fourth and fifth and sixth all together. And there's our race leader, and again he's under the most extreme pressure. He only came back into Irish racing in the middle of the season, has won at Mondello, won at Phoenix Park, and was second at Kirkuson, so he's had a very sparkling return to form. There's Gary O'Brien at the back of the field. We just saw a brief glimpse of him there.
Seems to be on straight line speed that Wayne Douglas is able to pull away from Mike Edgar, but into the corners Edgar seems to be catching up once again. Your theory a little bit earlier on, Alan, about tyres maybe coming to the fore this time, because it's set on the straight line speed. His car seems to be holding on very well, and Edgar seems to be catching him on the corners. Could it be the tyres?
Could well be. And interestingly enough, Derek Keneally seems to be in bother now. He's dropping back, and I wonder, has he got a tyre problem, because Ken Grandin, far from holding him up now, is pulling away from him.
Battle for the championship, of course, between the second place man Mike Edgar and the fourth place man Derek Keneally. Currently 99 points to Keneally after last week's win in Kirkuson, a non-finish for Edgar there, and 95 points for Edgar. And Jason Pollock provisionally with that appeal against his exclusion from the championship on 75 points. Lots of connotations, of course, with drop scores, but by our connotations we reckon they're level on 87 points apiece with drop scores. If Pollock's appeal fails, well, that's a different story.
Let's be honest, though. Michael Edgar needs these points. The man is currently lying in second. There's Vivian Daly, number 12, just going through screen at the moment. This is the battle again for third, fourth and fifth. Number 7 is Derek Keneally. He will need those points, but Michael Edgar needs points even more, because again, with this very complicated situation of Jason Pollock being excluded, it's likely that Keneally will gain some points from that situation. It's all very complicated. Let's just watch this race.
Yes, and a super race, the battle up front for the front two, lapping it around the 54.25s, 54.24s for their leaders. And said, I think, on the main straightaway, which they are now, Wayne Douglas is able to pull out just that little gap on Edgar, and again under braking Edgar seems to close that gap just a little bit, but I think because of the straight line speed Douglas can keep ahead of his old rival, the 93 champion and the 94 champion together.
Half distance in this race at the moment, 11 laps to go of the 22 lap race. Wayne Douglas, number 66, now a little bit further ahead than we'd seen up to now, with Michael Edgar still in second place. And if you were Michael Edgar, what would you do with this situation? He must stay out of trouble, he must gain points, he's outpointing his great rival Derek Keneally at the moment, so maybe he's fairly happy with this situation really at the moment.
Well, knowing Mike Edgar as I do, I don't think he'd expressly be happy to be sitting in second place, especially behind his own rival Wayne Douglas. He's a man who wants to win, but that gap just seems to be opening up. Over the last lap or two, he's pulling ahead 0.2 of a second constantly, 54.13. That's his fastest lap of the race so far. Now he's heading towards the 53s, and a 54.62. That's half a second of a lead, and you can see it out on the circuit. But this is the real battle of the race for second and third. Grandin, or third and fourth, I should say. Grandin and also Keneally chasing the championship points.
Keneally seems to have got a little bit fired up again in the MIM hydraulics car there. He's closing a little bit on the DHL car. DHL car 1, incidentally, run by the great PJ Fallon, a very popular name around Irish motor racing circles, who's been a driver and a team manager for many years. So there is young Keneally, again the son of a famous racing father. Father used to race Formula Ford around this track for many years. But Derek Keneally has really shown great form this season. He showed great promise last year and has come really into the form books and really in a championship contention, and had his first big win just last weekend at Kirkiston in the north.
And then there were 9 just out of your view. I see Noel Thompson, who was fortunately down in 10th place and lapped. He is pulled into the pits. His front nose cone was awry, and he's still sitting in the pits. So we're down to 9 cars with 9 laps remaining.
Right, just to recap then, it's Wayne Douglas out in the lead, and he's got a 1.2 second lead now over Michael Edgar, so he's suddenly opened up that gap. In third place, Ken Grandin, very close. This is the battle you're watching between him and Derek Keneally. Really, nothing separates those two. Then there's a bit of a gap before we get Adrian Pollock, Vivian Daly, David Collier, Gary O'Brien, Noel Dunn, and Noel Thompson, who we saw has just pulled off.
They're all battling around the 55 second mark. In fact, Noel Dunn is one of the quicker cars out there. He's in 9th place out of 9 overall, 55.29 seconds in the last lap, but he's well down the field, some 26 seconds behind our leader Wayne Douglas. But this is the battle again royal between Ken Grandin and Derek Keneally. I said a little bit earlier on that Grandin, I thought, was holding Keneally up, but Keneally left his braking very, very late there. You can see the little puff of the right hand tyre as he turned into the Coca-Cola corner. He left his braking very, very late indeed. Could have scared a lesser driver, I think, than Grandin. Grandin said, I'm holding my line here. If you're going to get past me, you're going to have to shunt me off at that corner.
There's another factor in this also, John, and that these cars will be racing for the very prestigious Leinster Trophy tomorrow, and obviously they don't want to damage themselves in any shape or form. The chance to get their name on a trophy that Ayrton Senna's name is on. What an honour.
And Eddie Jordan's name, of course, and Mika Hakkinen, who's currently in Formula 1, finished 4th or 5th today, I think, in qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza tomorrow. But Michael Edgar seems just a little bit closer now. He's put in a 54.28 second lap. That's 0.3 of a second faster than Wayne Douglas. So can he reel him in? He's got plenty of laps to go, 7 laps to go, and he's got plenty of time. And there's it. Keneally says, I'm going for it. Down the inside, has he left it too late? He's gone far too wide. Oh, poor old Derek Keneally tried the inside manoeuvre. He did it the lap before, outbroke Ken Grandin. Ken Grandin took the sensible line, and Keneally just overshot, and now he's pulled out a little bit of a substantial lead and keep himself in 3rd place.
Derek Keneally had to go for it, really. He really needs to get up that overall positions to get these championship points. But full marks to Grandin for keeping out of his way, because he saw the opportunity of getting past. So here we see it again. Keneally, very little room there, but Grandin goes wide, lets him through, has the confidence to know that he can get him again. He huffed him into too late a position, has the confidence to know that he can get him again and keep his position. Good driving. Good
driving as well by Adrian Pollock, who saw that these two, who were in 2nd and 3rd place, were having a real old schmozzle, or sorry, 3rd and 4th place, and he tried again to get up the inside as well, but back with our race leader once again, and well, the gap kind of consistent with 6 laps to go, but I thought at one stage that Wayne Douglas would pull out a commanding lead, but Edgar is still in there. Maybe his tyres are holding up better than we thought.
Right, time running out though for Michael Edgar if he's going to win this one. He really is dropped back a bit again. He looked this can happen, of course. You can sort of take a slight rest in the middle of a race, get everything cooled down a little bit, your brakes cool down, your tyres cool down, and then put on a concerted effort again in the closing laps. But certainly he's lying back a little bit now in second place, and of course poor young Derek Keneally very, very frustrated as we see him coming up here now with a 3-car length gap is between him and Ken Grandin. That's not what he wants this afternoon, the local man.
Just too far away now to try that late braking manoeuvre. He will of course try a late braking manoeuvre here just to get a little bit closer, but there's no way that he can get around a la last time. But looks like Vivian Daly has actually moved up the field a bit as well. He's now up to 6th place overall. There's Vivian Daly in the 2FM car just at the back of that little train there. It's Grandin from Keneally, from Adrian Pollock, from Vivian Daly. Vivian Daly has been coming good now in the last couple of races. So second in the Phoenix Park, won the Phoenix Park last year, won the Leinster Trophy a couple of years ago. Seems to come good at the latter part of the season. I just think he waits for the old TVs, Alan.
Waits for the TV and the big occasion, but he's not going to make it today, I don't think. Wayne Douglas looking very strong, and he comes past here. He'll have 5 laps to go. So Wayne Douglas pulling away a little bit again from Michael Edgar in second place, all getting their pit boards. Very professional, these Formula Opel outfits. They really have got quite nice big transporters. They've got set-up tables, an awful lot of gear. Quite a number now of highly professional teams running these cars in Ireland. It's really been the best thing ever happened for Irish motor racing. It's been the most healthy top end of the grid. Having a slight little siesta, you might say, this year compared to last, where it was absolutely superb. But here we are, Wayne Douglas, a man who went to England, absolutely starred, didn't sadly have the money to go on, and now has to content himself with Irish club racing in the Murphy and Gunn car there.
Yes, he's hoping to go back, as he said earlier on, to go Formula Vauxhall in the Winter Series, which of course is some great Irish drivers of the last couple of years have driven in that. And with 3 laps to go after this, Douglas has a commanding lead, and I don't think Edgar can do much about it.
3 laps to go. The time when you start to hear all those gremlins inside your motor car, little squeaks and noises and rumbles and things that you didn't think you heard before, and of course don't really exist. A racing car is a very noisy thing, and Keneally having another go contact there.
Has he broken a wishbone? No, I don't think so. There was a fairly hefty thump there between Grandin and Keneally. He tried around the outside. The front right tyre banged into the side of Grandin's car. That's kind of impacted, would break a wishbone, and a tyre could have flown off there, but they obviously did them stronger than I thought.
And Adrian Pollock waiting there like a vulture to pick up the pieces should anything go wrong. But Keneally will be now, here we see it again, on the outside, and this time Grandin came over. And the thump, actually, most of the impact, I think, went really in the side panel.
Yeah. Square on, really. If that was hit it at some kind of an angle, that wheel would have definitely gone. But Keneally still in the race and still in the championship, of course. He's got to make sure that he finishes here, because 4th place and championship points is better than no finish whatsoever, because last round in Kyrgyzstan, Mike Edgar got a non-finish, and suddenly Keneally jumped into the lead. But there's our race leader. Derek
Keneally, incidentally, lapping about fastest at the moment, or was in that last lap anyway. Still, yes, punching in the fast laps there, 74.8. And in amongst all this frustration, and once again, after that incident, he has to drop back into 4th place. Ken Grandin then, number 17, you're watching, just go up the hill in 3rd position. Somebody, let's be honest, we really didn't expect to be there.
Certainly not. The PJ Fallon cars, fairly big sponsorship this year, have had, by their own standards, a disappointing season. We thought we'd see the old veteran PJ himself out actually racing this year. No sign of him, unfortunately, but they're on the very last lap now, and this looks like our winner.
Wayne Douglas then has moved south, now lives in Ashbourne, helps out with the Cliff Dempsey team, and now has been driving at the tail end of the season when this car became available, heading towards his 3rd win of the year in Irish Formula Opel. And really a joy to watch as he throws the car from lock to lock, coming back down into the main arena, and I don't think really anything bar a mechanical disaster can prevent him from getting this win now. So the Cliff Dempsey Castrol team, which has been dominant in Irish Formula Opel racing since they came aboard about 3 or 4 years ago, going to collect another prestigious win. Wayne Douglas comes down the hill, number 66, going to take the checkered flag. Superbly controlled race from start to finish.